Shame is taking the driver's seat of the car. Brené Brown, a researcher who has studied shame for years, defines it as an intensely painful experience or feeling of believing we are flawed and therefore unworthy of love and belonging. It's believing that something we've done, experienced, or failed to do makes us unworthy of connection. It's easy to feel that we don't have any shame because it has become so normalized and deeply engraved in us. We can't tell the difference between when it's there versus when it's not. You may also not know you have shame because you don't spend a lot of time observing your inner critic, and that's okay. Shame lives within our critical self-talk and belief system. You might feel shame to admit you have shame. Shame manifests itself with many faces. It's within those times you don't go after your goals because you tell yourself you're not good enough yet, or when you don't share your emotions because of the deep belief that there's something wrong with you for feeling them. Conflict invites shame. Let's rewind. You're a person experiencing shame, and then there is shame itself. What most people don't realize is often when shame arises, it is because past wounds you may not have been aware of have been triggered, and shame is the conditioned response. I believe that at a young age, shame becomes a coping mechanism. When we can't rationalize why people around us are treating us the way they are, all we can do is turn inwards and see ourselves as the problem. Because shame can be a conditioned response, its presence is not usually warranted, meaning that just because you feel shame arise doesn't mean it's telling the truth or that what the shame is speaking about is accurate. We are so quick to believe the shame because we think, oh, it showed up, so it must be true. But in reality, it showed up because it's a conditioned response that's trying to take over. In those moments, we need to build up awareness to say, I notice I'm feeling shame, and pay attention to where this is being stored in your body. I also want to take a moment to recognize how shame can really vary with culture. As much as I speak on these experiences and give my advice on shame, everyone's shame is different and may be heightened because of culture or other experiences. I hold space for and acknowledge all of the variety of experiences with shame that are present with us today in each of you. So what's the difference between guilt and shame? Guilt is about taking responsibility for your actions. When you have guilt, you focus on the behavior, whereas shame focuses on who you are as a person. Guilt reminds us of our values and allows us to learn. It is helpful in moderation. Brené Brown says, guilt is, I made a mistake. Shame is, I am the mistake. When you're taking accountability, guilt is useful, but you can ditch the shame. I want you to gently notice if there's any emotions coming up for you while you're listening to me speak. Maybe your own shame has come up while listening. Don't judge this, just acknowledge whatever is there and allow it to exist as we continue on. Don't let shame tell you why you made a mistake. When someone is upset with us, our logical thinking is thrown to the side and we get anxious because someone being upset with us is threatening. It activates our fear of rejection and we are scared that deep down they might confirm a belief we have about our lack of worthiness. We lack so much compassion for ourselves because we never give ourselves the chance to hear out why we did what we did. That shameful voice is justifying our actions by telling us it's just because we are a bad person. But humans have three core needs: to be seen, heard, and loved. Most of our actions are subconscious and acting to get those needs met, even if it's in a really messed up way. You need to start giving yourself a chance to justify why you did what you did, have compassion for the answer, and not let shame take the microphone. Shame doesn't permit you to make a mistake just because you made a mistake. But how many times when we comfort others do we tell them not to be hard on themselves because they just made a mistake? But of course, we could never let ourselves get off the hook that easily. Why do we think that we can shame ourselves into being better or just improving ourselves in some way? The idea that there is something wrong with the true us is painful. Often we think if we shame ourselves enough, we can shame ourselves into being better. As I mentioned before, I used to think I could only make it right if I made it about my character. that I didn't truly understand what I did unless I made myself feel bad for it. I remember my therapist telling me, you can simply just make a mistake, Mare, because you're human, and that's it. No ands and buts. I was like mind blown by that simple sentence when I heard it for the first time. Um, a lot of people don't practice self-compassion because they think criticism is the best way to shape them into a better person. But that's not true. In a study that followed hundreds of people who were trying to progress at a wide range of activities, from weight loss to academics and more, the people who were self-critical didn't get as much done as quickly as those who used self-compassion. In fact, scientists think that self-criticism puts us into a state of self-inhibition, which basically means we slam on the brakes of our own progress. As well, sometimes we shame ourselves because we lack self-trust. I know that's a big thing that I struggle with, especially when we go through trauma and different experiences. We can really lose that self-trust. We don't believe in who we are as people. Non-judgmental self-reflection and journaling to reflect on times where you have done the opposite of whatever the shame is telling you can help build self-trust. For example, if it's telling you that you are a bad person, what are the times that you have felt the opposite? This is all about questioning your thoughts and kind of asking if they really have evidence to back it up and if you have evidence that you could counteract that thought with. In conflict, it's so common to feel misunderstood. When you feel misunderstood by people, that can bring up a lot of shame. In conflict, people can often misunderstand you because they didn't know your intentions or the full story. When we get really defensive when people bring up conflict, shame is speaking. Shame doesn't want us to look at certain parts of ourselves. If we allow ourselves to take accountability for what we've done, that requires us to have acceptance for ourselves. When we have acceptance for all parts of ourselves, we can allow ourselves to see our shadow parts, meet them with compassion, and try again better next time. Of course, you're going to do hurtful things. It's hard to face ourselves when we do. But shame doesn't want us to face it because if we face it, we might realize the humanness of it, and that threatens shame's existence. Taking accountability without shame is about seeing the aspects of you that are hard to look at and taking accountability for the actions they've done without tearing them down. We can't heal our relationship with these aspects of ourselves if we're constantly yelling at them for their existence. Shame thinks I am as I am seen. Someone sees me this way, so that must be how I am. Everyone's perception of an experience is different. Does that mean it's not valid or that there isn't something to learn from? Absolutely not. But you should just not take it wholeheartedly. It's time to out the shame. Sharing that you're experiencing shame with someone can really change everything. Shame thrives on silence. We feel ashamed that we have shame, so to keep it a secret feeds it. But often when we share our shame, it allows people to tell us how they actually feel about us, meeting our shame with compassion, which destroys it. I know when Olivia, one of the amazing people behind this event, asked me to speak, I said to her, of course I want to, but I just really don't know that I'm good enough to do that. Once I heard her comforting reaction, that voice of shame got real quiet. I recognize this is easier said than done, but if you ever come across the opportunity where you feel safe enough to share your shame, do it.